Well, he's a three-time national champion. Couple at Florida, one at Ohio State. Highest winning percentage, 83-9 for the Buckeyes. It's hard to wrap your brain around that. Fox Sports college football analyst. Won everywhere he went and very quickly. So I had joked all year. I said, Ohio State was the whack-a-mole program. Every time I fell in love with them, I didn't like their defense. Then I didn't like their run. Every time I watched them, I'm like, okay, now Will Howard drives me nuts. And then I watched them this weekend. I was like, okay, that team can win a national championship. I knew they had better players, but were you a little surprised that their defense just suffocated Indiana? I mean, it was uncomfortable. They couldn't move the ball.
Yeah, we were obviously there, and in pregame warm-ups, I got a chance to walk around a little bit, and there was a big discrepancy just in talent. Indiana took the ball and drove it 70 yards in a great drive to score the opening touchdown, and I looked up at the scoreboard in the beginning of the fourth quarter, and they only had 90 yards.
Yeah.
So for three quarters, they had 20 yards, and the offensive line got really beat badly. Jim Knowles did a really good job, and even Coach Cignetti said the noise was an issue. You think this is really unbelievable, Colin, when you look at it. 44 of their players were basically unrecruited out of high school. They brought 13 players from James Madison. So there's two things there. Number one, what a job by the Cignetti and that coaching staff and those players.
Yeah.
But the reality is they've never been in an arena like that and that facing those kind of players.
It didn't bother me at all. Listen, Indiana, and Cignetti is trying to boost up his team's confidence. He got a little chatty. It didn't bother me at all what Will Howard did. It's like, folks, it's 3 seconds. These kids have a right. It's hard. Did this thing bother you at all, the little move by Will Howard?
I really don't like that stuff, but does it bother me? No, I don't care. Whenever our players did it, the old adage, and maybe this is old school, act like you've been there. But no, Ohio State just gets hammered nonstop by the media. Will Howard's been hammered. And players to have a little fun, go have at it. But to answer your question, at times I just wish you'd go hug your teammates and go play.
Now it's Michigan. Michigan sent 15 guys to the pros. They've got a great down lineman. Graham's a monster interior D lineman, best in the country. They got a great corner in Will Johnson. Those are really top 6-7 players. They're great players. I don't remember every matchup with Michigan. You went in as a favorite several times. Do you worry at all, coming off an emotional Indiana game, that you're a massive favorite in your rivalry game? I'd like to be a favorite. I don't know if I want to be a 3-touchdown favorite. What do you make of that as a former Buckeye great?
Well, we have a podcast and on the triple option, and then we also have the Fox. And I just had some notes that we were actually ranked or picked by 3 scores one time. And it was a close game, closer than 3 scores. So the minute someone says the Wolverines have bad players, yeah, you're out of your mind. They got excellent players, like you just said, that they've had some quarterback issues. But yes. Quarterback can get fixed in a game. So I guarantee you there's too much respect in that locker room at Ohio State. I know the coaching staff, they're going to be just don't read anything. You just work your tail off and find a way to win this game. So regardless what the media says, point spread, it doesn't matter.
Okay, you and I know Kalen DeBoer is a great coach. That goes without saying. We also know Alabama is a great program. I don't even know what I watched in Norman, Oklahoma. Brett Venables that was a perfect game plan. I mean, Venables, Oklahoma was out of this world good. Go to your first year to school. You're taking over for Saban. You have a different culture. Jalen Milroe, I like him, but boy, when he's off, he's off. Can we just say it's this? Their quarterback is inconsistent, and when he's bad, that's what they look like. Is it as easy as that?
When Coach DeBoer took the job, I've actually talked to him a few times. Excellent coach, obviously, great guy, but that's a tough job. When I took over for Ron Zook, I would still hear about Spurrier several times a week. We don't do it like Spurrier does it. And it became overwhelming at times. And he's taken over immediately after. So I can only imagine what he's going through. So here's the thing, Colin. You have LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss, A&M, I believe. What happens now to these teams that were picked and they have the players and the NIL to win a national title, and that becomes out of reach? Do the players start cashing it in? Remember when the players started opting out of bowl games?
Yeah.
That's one of the things I'm anxious to see. If one of these blue bloods or a couple of these blue bloods get officially out of the playoff, what happens to them? Do they really go to the Citrus Bowl, or do they really go to and play? Will their agents let them play? I'm anxious to see what happens here in the next couple of weeks.
It's interesting. I think there's 4 or 5 schools in the country that recruit at a different level. Ohio State, Clemson doesn't, and Michigan doesn't always, although Harbaugh was great. But in my lifetime, LSU, Ohio State, Georgia, and whenever Texas has the right coach, you guys just look different. Georgia's in that. To LSU, when they have the right coach, can look different. Then there's a bunch of teams that recruit good players. Oregon out west, Phil Knight, they've been winning football games, Urban, for a long time, and they're as fast as anybody, including Ohio State. I mean, they got California speed everywhere. But when I watch Oregon, and I love Lanning, Ohio State and Texas look like they got more big bodies. Am I undervaluing Oregon? Or do you look at Oregon and think, no, I watched them play Ohio State. They got the same level of players. What do you make of Oregon?
I got a little more intel than that because I went out to spring practice and watched them and spent a day and a half with them, their staff, and one of the best coaching staffs I've ever watched work. I thought Oregon was a Pac-12 type team. Pac-12 meaning they have elite speed, but they're just not, they're just not physical. They don't have the big bodies, like you said, on the offensive and defense line. But I don't want to say that surprised because I knew they had a good team, but they looked the part.
Yeah.
And when you walked Indiana and Ohio State, it didn't look right. It didn't look the same, which obviously it doesn't. I'm the same way about Texas, Georgia, even Alabama. But if Ohio State wins this week and they play Oregon in the Big Ten Championship, if you get a chance, go walk on the field if you're there, and you'll see they're very similar looking teams.
Yeah. Finally, I'm watching Brian Kelly struggle and Lincoln Riley. And I had this conversation. And by the way, Colorado this weekend looked good and just did not play well. And I said, I am for the 12-team playoff, the transfer portal, the NIL. But I could imagine how hard it would be with a transfer portal to coach hard. I mean, if a kid doesn't play, it's like I'm going to go across the street. And I'm like, even in the NFL, there's like a free agency period. You just can't. And I look at Brian Kelly, who we both know is a great coach. Lincoln's a good coach. Do you think it's, half of me thinks it's easier to coach today because if you have a bad corner situation, you can go buy 2 of them. But the NIL, the transfer portal, is that somewhat to blame for what's happening in LSU and maybe USC? Or what do you make of that whole culture?
Well, the transfer portal when I first started coaching was something called junior college transfers.
Yeah.
And you would go out, and Bill Snyder was legendary at doing it. I was always on staff, so very leery of doing it. If players are leaving programs, they're usually a junior college player, not all the time, but first they might have been under-recruited, underdeveloped, or they had some kind of issue and they had to leave a school. So you're taking all these people from other schools and you only get them for 6 months, 9 months, maybe 12 months. Is it really conducive to building a culture? And I never did it. I didn't coach in the transfer portal era, but I did in the JC era. We picked maybe 1 or 2 every other year. And I'd rather get that 17-year-old and just saturate them with our culture, our belief system, the way we work, get to know your teammates. I'm a big believer in the brotherhood. And I think it's a much different era now. I would be extremely uncomfortable turning over 40, 45 guys, even 30.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what that's like, but teams are doing it.
Yeah, it is tough. Well, you guys are doing a great job. Ohio State, I'm wrong a lot, but I had Ohio State losing to Oregon and Autzen and then beating them later in the playoff and facing Texas in the national championship. And I think that game will come down to turnovers and, just strategy, and it'll be close. If you had to guess today, I think Texas, Ohio State look like the best teams I've seen. Does that sound about right to you, what you've seen?
Before the Georgia started having the quarterback issues, I had Texas, Georgia, and Ohio State as the best rosters, and Oregon right behind it. But Georgia just the turnover. I've never seen a fall from Carson Beck being a projected first rounder, and it's once again it's the receiver. It's been a mess as far as turnovers.
Yeah.
But Georgia's right there as well as far as talent.
Yeah. In any one game spot, watch out for Georgia. They can get after you. Great seeing you, Coach, as always. Urban Meyer. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Colin.
You bet. Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.